This is Leah with Backyard Homestead in Starkville, Mississippi, and it is Thursday afternoon, August 22nd, and we're out in the garden about to do some harvesting, and I want to give you a garden update as we do our harvest. These are our sweet potatoes, and they are going nuts. They're going crazy. We planted everywhere you see the little stake. There's like a little bamboo stake sticking up. Everywhere you see a stake plant is where we planted an original sweet potato slip. How many are there? About 12? About 12 plants we planted, and they are about to overrun the area. But this whole area to right, I'm looking for the last stake. Yeah, right here. This last row straight across to the fence is where we planted, and then you can see they've run all under back here in this corn patch. So the sweet potatoes are really healthy. The plants are doing great, and I hope that translates into a decent sweet potato harvest. But the plants are looking awesome. Next thing going down the garden is our corn, and this is our second planting of corn. We planted Stoll's Evergreen at the beginning of the season, and I've had a nice harvest off of it. And then when it got finished, we immediately planted this Silver Queen, and we are about, some of the ears are ready, so we're about to harvest some of it. Probably about half the ears are finished. We're gonna harvest it this afternoon. The only thing we've noticed about planting later in the season, the corn does well, but it is a little buggier. There's some worms in it. But you can cut the end off of that, and the ears themselves, real pretty. Pretty ears of corn. So we're going to go through and harvest the sweet corn. Again, this is Silver Queen, and I will come back and show you what we got. Okay, this is how much sweet corn we just picked, and it looks like that was probably just about half of the ears we have, so we probably should have this much again still to pick, but it's not quite ready. So probably in about another week and a half, we'll pick the rest of it. But we'll shuck this and do a weigh-in in a little bit. We're going to pick everything else first. It sounds like it's about to rain. But this is today's harvest of sweet corn. And these are our red Marconi peppers we've had growing in pots, and they are just now starting to make peppers. And you can see the size of the stalks. They're huge, and they've been growing well all summer and looking great. They just haven't started making peppers until now, and now they're hanging with a good number of peppers. So we're going to pick these. But these are our red Marconi, and we actually have a red one down here. So I'll pick these and come back and show you what we got. Just want to give a frame of reference for how tall these red Marconis are. This fence is 5 feet tall. They're higher than the fence. The bottom edge of the eave of the house is about 7 feet high, and they're almost up there. So those red Marconis are about 6 feet tall. I mean, they're huge. And there's lots of blooms on them and lots of peppers hanging, so they're finally starting to kick in. These are contender bush green beans we planted, and they've been planted for a while, but they're starting to do a little bit better now. They've been planted by where we had the cucumbers, and we pulled off the cucumbers, so now these are getting more light, and they are just starting to get ready to bloom, and they're starting to look pretty nice. So we should expect some green beans from these pretty soon. And on the back side of this fence, we have brandywine tomatoes that we started from seed, and they're getting pretty big now. Brandywine's all down this fence. And on this row are our Cubanelle peppers, and they're looking good, still doing really nicely, producing really well. We're going to go through and pick them now. Got some nice looking peppers on these. We'll go through and do a pepper harvest and come back and show you what we got. All of them are hanging pretty heavy with peppers. And these are a tasty pepper too, really prolific. All right, I'll pick them and come back and show you what we got. Got a nice little bucket of Cubanelles here. Okay, on this row, the beginning, we have jalapenos. And then on down here, we have some bell peppers. And they're still making, not quite as well as they were earlier, but still making. So we'll look through these. I don't know if there'll be many to pick, but we'll look through these and we'll pick them if they need it. I'll come back and show you what we got. We picked that short row of jalapeno peppers, and then also picked the 3 buckets of jalapenos we have on the patio. And we got this decent little stack of jalapenos, and I'll show you what we got after the weigh-in. On this row, we planted more contender bush green beans, and they've been in the ground for a while, but not growing very quickly. They were planted behind that row of Roma tomatoes we had, and the Roma tomatoes finally fizzled out, so we pulled them, took them down, so hopefully these green beans will kick in now that they get more light. And we planted where the Roma tomatoes were growing on the back side of this fence, we planted more contender bush green beans. These 2 rows, we have bush butter beans, and they're looking pretty nice, and they're starting to bloom, so hopefully we'll have some butter beans soon. And over here on this row, we have more contender bush green beans planted, but again, they were planted on the row in front of the Roma tomatoes, and the Roma tomatoes were really shading them out. So hopefully now that we've pulled the Roma tomatoes finished producing on this row, so we went ahead and pulled them, and hopefully now our bush green beans will get more light. And where we pulled the Roma tomatoes, we planted more contender bush green beans. This row of Roma tomatoes is still producing, but it's definitely on the way out, but there's still some on here. And so we'll let them the ones that are on here, ripen. There's still some green ones. And we'll let them ripen, and then we'll pull this and probably plant more green beans. And the Romas that we picked off of this fence are in on the table, and I'll show you those in a minute. Okay, and back here we have our girls. And we have 6 chickens now. We have 3 barred rocks and 3 buff Orpingtons. The buffs are definitely more skittish than the bards. And this is our chicken run area. I guess she thinks the red light's something to eat. She keeps pecking it. And on this fence around the chickens, we have more Roma tomatoes and banana peppers. And we're about to harvest these banana peppers, and I'll do a weigh-in on those. And these have done pretty well, but anything that gets where the chickens can eat it, if it gets close to the wire or they pick it off, so they don't have as good a chance as the other pepper plants. But the ones that are far enough away from the chickens are doing well. Okay, this is our catfish pond, and last week it got really, really hot here for about 4 days in a row. The actual temperatures were in the high 90s to low hundreds, and the heat indices were over 110 in that range for about 4 days straight. And the pond, it got really, really hot, and the water in the pond doesn't hold its oxygen level as well during hot weather as it does during cold weather. And we started to notice some of the fish coming to the surface and acting like they were struggling. And we did everything we could. We have aeration. We have the pipe that we use to get the water out of the pond. We can attach a hose to. We had it jetting, so we aerated as much as we possibly could. But we noticed that some of the fish were still struggling. The water wasn't able to have enough oxygen to support the number of fish we have in here. So we went ahead and did a partial harvest. We harvested the ones that looked like they were struggling, and we ended up pulling 66 catfish out of the pond. And they ranged in weight from 1.25 pounds to about 2.25 pounds. This is earlier than we would like to have harvested, but like I said, we did everything we could. But the pond is small, and the temperatures got so hot that it just couldn't support that number of fish. The oxygen levels were too low. So we ended up harvesting 66 fish, and we estimate there are about 34 left in here, and we'll let them grow out till we estimated we have to harvest around the end of October, mid-October to the end of October, so we're going to let the rest grow out. But we ended up doing a catfish harvest last week. And here's our quail, one of our batch of quail. These quail are 14 weeks old, and they're pretty much large enough to harvest. We're going to wait 2 more weeks. We usually like to harvest around 16 weeks, but they're doing well. And this is our other younger group of quail. I don't know if you can see them. They, of course, run to the other end, but they're only about 6 weeks old, so they have a while, about 10 more weeks before they'll be ready to harvest. But they're doing really, really well, healthy and pretty. For those of you who have followed this and know, we've talked about that the city came and replaced our sewer pipe in the back, and this was about 2 years ago, and they left us a big clumpy clay mess that's been back here for about 2 years. Well, they finally came and brought a tractor, and they smoothed this off and have it nice and, for the most part, level. And they're supposed to be coming in. You can see they leveled. That's our neighbor's yard. And then you can see on down, about 3 houses down, they came and leveled this off. They're supposed to be coming back now and replacing this back fence. So we're pretty happy about that. It's been a long time coming. Our impatiens and our pond filters, I wanted to show those. It's pretty interesting. That front bucket looks beautiful. The upper back bucket looks beautiful. And then this front right doesn't look so nice. During all that time when we were having problems with the fish and it was so hot, if one of the holes in the back of the filter, sometimes debris will get in this hole and stop it up so it won't be flowing down into this bottom filter. And we were coming out here every day. The back hole stopped up, so there was no water coming to this front plant. And so probably within the space of 2 days, this plant completely died down, and well, almost died down. We spotted the problem and unclogged the hole in the filter, and now it's starting to come back, but probably in the space of 2 days, all the leaves fell off and the plant almost completely died. So it's been really, really hot here. I don't know if you can see this foam through the pond cover. Try to get under. But that foam that you can see on here is a telltale sign that something's wrong with your pond. When the fish are starting to struggle, they secrete a protein or an enzyme that causes this foam on the water. And that's one of the first things we noticed when we came out one morning during the drama of the fish. About half the pond was completely covered in this foam. And then we started looking more closely and we saw the fish like they were trying to come to the surface, like they were gulping for air. And definitely knew there was a problem. But if you see this on your pond, even if the fish aren't acting strangely yet, that's a real good sign that something's wrong. And even after, we fixed the problem and lowered the fish population, we still see a little of this, but we haven't seen any sign of the fish coming up. So we think this is just, the after effects, that we hope we've got the problem corrected now. These are more bush butter beans that we planted, and we had these planted in front of our climbing green beans. We finally bit the bullet and pulled the climbing green beans. We kept holding out hope that they were going to do something, but they never did, so we finally pulled them down, and hopefully these butter beans will start showing out now that they're not being shaded by those climbing green beans. And over here on this side, these are the peas we planted. This is a double row, and then another double row over there, and they're looking really nice. They're starting to bloom and have little peas on them. So we should be starting to harvest peas off of these soon. Okay. On the back side of this fence where we pulled the climbing green beans, we have cucumbers started in flats, and we're going to set out cucumbers and try to get a fall harvest of cucumbers. This is cubanelle that we have in this back bed that we are letting go to seed. It's far away from all the other, except that's another cubanelle over there, but we've got it far away from the other varieties of peppers. So we're going to use this one and save it for seed. So we got some red, some orange. We're not picking any of these though. We're letting them go to seed. Our eggplants, and they are still doing well. There's blooms on some. Still making eggplant. We've really enjoyed these this summer. Here's a weird deformed one. I don't know what happened to the other side of him. Kind of got a crazy spot. And here's a nice pretty one down here. But we've been picking these all summer and frying them up, and they're delicious. Hopefully we'll get a few more off of these. This is our watermelon patch, and they are finally starting to bloom. So hopefully we'll have time to get some watermelons off of this before the season ends. But the plants are healthy and pretty. This is our old original pea patch, and it is still, this end looks pretty spent, but down on this end, there's a whole lot of blooms. And they're closing up now for the evening, but this morning they were wide open. So got a bunch of blooms down here, so hopefully we'll still keep getting some peas off of this for a little while. I'm about to walk over and show you the okra, but I wanted to kind of be able to be pulled back first and give you a frame of reference on how tall this stuff is. That the edge of the house, the bottom edge of the eave is about 7 feet tall, and our okra is much taller than that. The okra is probably about 8 feet tall, maybe 8.5 feet tall, and it is huge and gorgeous and covered with okra. I mean, it is covered with okra. Okra everywhere. Okra out of all these side stalks. There's some more at the top of that one. Let me find a side stalk with some okra. Yeah, here's one. This is a side stalk out of this. It's a branch. It's another bract coming off the side. And it has 2 or 3 pods of okra at the top of it and more blooms. So it is doing really, really well. We don't chop off any of the leaves on the sides of the plants. So a lot of these areas where the leaves came off, we think start these separate side stalks. And these side stalks, if left alone, left to produce, will. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 separate side stalks coming off the main trunk. And all these side stalks will produce for you. So we don't chop off any of the leaves at the bottom or the side stalks after they produce a pod of okra, because they'll keep going. This side stalk is producing another side stalk off of it, and it will eventually produce okra. That one has what? This side stalk off a side stalk has blooms. So we don't chop off any of the leaves as the season goes. We let this thing grow. It turns into a tree. And all the different little branches coming off the sides produce okra. So we let it go. We don't chop off any of the leaves after harvesting early in the season. And this is one of our early original bush green bean patches. It was in the shade and it started producing a little bit later than some of the others, but it is still producing. And this is probably going to be the last time we pick it. It has beans on it. We'll pick these and eat these, and then go ahead and pull these because there's very, very few blooms left. So we'll pick these and pull these and plant something else here. These are some plants we have started for the fall, but we have to kind of do a dance with these because if we start them too early, it gets too hot. And also, we have geckos in the neighborhood, and they come and eat these little tender plants up. So we may end up replanting some of these, but we have broccoli started, and Swiss chard, and cauliflower, and some different greens, but you can see a lot of them are just little stalks sticking up because those little geckos come out and eat all the leaves off these things. Pretty funny. But they don't touch the cucumbers. These are the cucumbers we started from seed, and these are the ones we're going to set out on one of those fences. And that's about it for the garden update. Okay, and this is our compost pile. It was over here, but when we harvested the fish, the skins, the guts, the heads, the tails, all the parts of the fish you don't want, we took and we buried out here, and then we moved the compost pile on top of where we buried the fish parts. And then this, we'll use the compost after it breaks down a little bit more and put it over, use it to fertilize the garden. But this area where we buried the fish will also be somewhere where we plant fall lettuce and greens or carrots, something for fall, and it should grow like crazy on top of all those fish leavings. And that is about it. We're going to finish picking the okra, and then I'll do a weigh-in and come back and show you what we got from this afternoon's harvest. Okay, so this is our grand total. Our harvest today, we got 35 ears of Silver Queen sweet corn, 11.60 pounds, 2.08 pounds of okra, 5.23 pounds of Cubanelle peppers, 0.37 pounds of banana peppers, 0.79 pounds of jalapeno peppers, 0.83 pounds of red Marconis, 1.98 pounds of eggplant, 0.35 pounds of green beans, 0.21 pounds of purple whole peas, and that is it for this. I'm going to carry you in and show you the tomatoes on the other harvest table. And these are the tomatoes from the past couple of days. These are the ones we picked before we pulled the 2 rows of Romas that we pulled. And these are some of the better boys. This is 22.48 pounds of Roma tomatoes and 9.46 pounds of better boy tomatoes. And that is it for the garden update and garden harvest for today. Thanks for watching.